What is up, everybody? I'm back for my second video. The 1 year anniversary of my diabetes diagnosis is coming up shortly, and I realized that I still haven't made any more of these videos, and my goal is to have some of these posted when that date comes, and to continue telling my story and sharing this information with other people who might be interested. So I'm back in the mountains on a hike, different canyon nearby the same canyon I was in for my first video. It's really cloudy today, so I don't have much of a view to show you, but I assure you it's really beautiful. This is East Canyon, which is also Santa Clarita. And right now I'm chilling under a tree that's kind of raining on me, but it's really nice. And I have a case on my phone, so I think I'll be okay. So, in my first video, I had talked about my diagnosis and going to the hospital, and that was pretty much where I left it. And if you guys haven't seen that video, please check it out. This video, I want to talk more about like the immediate aftermath of my diagnosis once I'm home and dealing with this disease on my own. So I'm released from the hospital and I'm at home, and I'm relieved to be at home, but after a while, the reality of having a chronic illness really started to sink in. The fact that I knew pretty much nothing about this disease really started to sink in. I spent a lot of time online trying to see if there was some kind of way that I had a misdiagnosis, if some of what was going on, the diagnosis was wrong, and there was something wrong with my pancreas that happened in the car accident. And like I talked about in my last video, I had had all the symptoms for a long time, but I was still just strongly in denial and just hoping that this was not something that was permanent. And so I had been instructed to, at the hospital, eat meals consisting of no more than 45 carbs, and in fact I aim for 45 carbs per meal. And the idea of considering macros in my food was totally new to me. And I love to eat fruit, so I'd be trying to make food, and I'd want to eat like a banana or something like that, and I'd go on Google and look up like how many carbs are in a banana, and I'd see things like, a large banana, it might be 25 grams of carb, and then started realizing that it'd be very hard to incorporate high carb fruits into my meals, and that was really sad. So I eat a lot of processed vegan junk food, but I also just love fruit. So grocery shopping was crazy. I remember going to Whole Foods and trying to pick up a couple of things, and I'd be like, oh, these peaches look really good. How many grams of carb are in a peach? So then I'd look it up on Google and in the store on my phone and see, okay, there's less carbs in here. I can probably get away with eating a peach. And so I'd buy peaches, and then I'd be like, oh no, wait, hold on, I need to find out what the glycemic index is, because that was another thing that they had talked about at the hospital. And so I'd be looking up that, all this is my first grocery trip. It was just it was just a nightmare. It was just so crazy trying to figure out like what would constitute a meal and how could I combine these foods and would I be okay taking my 4 units of Humalog at this meal. And so like for the first week or so, I pretty much continued like kind of how I was eating before, but just being more aware of how many carbs I was eating. So might eat like a field roast sausage, which didn't have a lot of carbs. It had like a lot of protein and fat in it, but I wasn't even looking at those macros. And then like a peach or something, and like a handful of these like Earth Balanced Cheez-It crackers. I was still eating a lot of processed food, and I found that easier to deal with because there's nutrition labels that tell you how many carbs you're consuming and all this. So I went on eating that way for like, let's say the first week. That was pretty much just what I was doing. At the hospital, I mentioned in my last video that I didn't have health insurance, and at the hospital, the diabetes educator, she pretty much told me like, you seem like a fairly intelligent person. Just go online and like look this stuff up. She pretty much just like told me I was on my own and I would have to kind of figure this out in the nicest way that she thought was possible, which is disheartening to think about, but was actually like the most solid advice I ended up getting, because the internet was the greatest tool that I had to figure this out. So I joined a couple of these Facebook groups for vegan diabetics, and I started asking around on there, like about how to eat fruit. Like, how do you guys eat fruit? And somebody mentioned, they said, you need to go check out this website, masteringdiabetes.org. And that those people are like the experts on eating fruit and eating a vegan diet with diabetes. And so I went to their webpage and started reading around. And what they were saying was essentially that you can actually eat a very high carbohydrate diet with lots of fruit and lots of potatoes and starchy vegetables and non-starchy vegetables and all of this. Like, you can just eat like hundreds of grams of carbohydrate a day, as long as you keep your fat intake low. So that kind of intrigued me, but instinctively I kind of like, my bullshit meter kind of went off, and I was kind of thinking, well, I don't know, this sounds kind of crazy. But, it was an idea that stuck in my mind. So I started kind of playing around with that idea. I just kind of started eating more. I'd say, okay, I'm going to eat like a banana, and eat more carb in this meal, but incorporated more like whole foods. That's their whole thing, is whole food, plant-based. They're totally against eating processed foods. So I didn't go all the way or anything, but I just kind of started experimenting with that idea of like, can I eat more carbohydrate than these people are telling me at the hospital? And started noticing some really interesting things just by incorporating more of these foods in, which is that my blood sugar, which had been riding like in the 200s this whole time, started to come down. Like, I'd start seeing it in the hundreds, 190, 180, and started experimenting more with it and getting more getting more confident in eating some meals like this. And one day I saw my blood sugar get down to like 150, 154, something now, some number now I'd see and I'd be upset with, but um, it was the lowest I had seen it, and I was so excited. And I decided at that time that that I would go ahead and join their coaching program, and that was the best decision I ever could have made. And for now, I'm going to leave it there, and I'll get more into that later. And my journey so far on this whole food, plant-based diet, and coming up on close to a year eating this way. And I'd also like to cover in my next video just some of the non-dietary, just diabetes-related stuff that I went through without health insurance for a good 6 months there, dealing with the county hospital system and trying to get insulin and all that stuff too. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll post some more videos soon. Peace out.